Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King Dia, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet Blood Sports, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So recently, I've been seeing a lot of stories on 4chan, a lot of statements from Crystal Dynamics regarding like the upcoming Tomb Raider game, and or regarding the Tomb Raider IP as a whole, I should say, and it does not paint a pretty picture. I expected that following the acquisition of Crystal Dynamics by Embracer, sold by Square Enix, I was expecting the games to take a dip in quality, but it seems like we're now in like full Western degeneracy mode. Because all these people seem to want to talk about is how like Lara's not interested in men and oh she's gonna pursue relationships with women in the upcoming game. That's the trend I've been seeing, and time will tell if the game is actually going to get made. Considering this is Embracer we're talking about, it's highly suspect actually because we've seen a couple of high profile games from them kind of flop and be disasters. They've only really had success with re-releasing old stuff on modern platforms. Um, but it seems like what they're focusing on with this Tomb Raider game is that they really want to push the whole like Lara Croft is a lesbian angle, which is of course complete nonsense. It's a complete retcon. It's not something that's been ever part of the games. Like no developer has ever talked about this. I remember when this used to be a joke, right? When people used to joke about this, about them trying this, right? And it seems like there were people at Crystal Dynamics pushing for this to happen, and now it seems they have enough control to like try and make this the primary focus of the next Tomb Raider game. And it is the primary focus because they're not talking about like new locations or new mechanics or really anything. They're focusing mostly on this idea that like, oh man, Lara Croft doesn't need no man. And the thing is, the reason I have an issue with this is it's really not true to the character at all. Because Lara Croft isn't interested in men because she's a lesbian. She's not interested in men because she's so busy like going on adventures and like going to these like lost civilizations and like raiding tombs and stuff. Like being the Tomb Raider. I don't really see a problem with uh, these female video game action heroes like being single. I've kind of said the same thing about Bayonetta actually, in that I don't like the idea of her being with anyone because it distracts from like the core focus of what the game should be about, which is the action and the exploration and stuff like that. Like I found Lara Croft to be an extremely likable character in the 2013 reboot. I found her incredibly charming. A waifu, right? Like I love people like that, right? She's incredibly clever, knows a lot about the world. I really respect that about her. Um, Never once did I think that like, oh man, I wonder if she's seeing anyone. Like, because it's not important to the game, right? Like, it's not really a thing. But developers of a certain persuasion, a certain political persuasion, are desperately trying to make this like the focus of everything going forward. We've kind of already seen this with The Last of Us Part 2, in which they kind of shit all over like the male protagonist Joel from the first game in order of like hyping up Ellie in this like lesbian relationship, like and she gets cucked, and then like the whole Last of Us Part 2 is a complete mess. I feel like Tomb Raider is going to go down the same road. Like looking at these interviews, seeing these statements, and just from what I've seen from Embracer so far, I have no optimism that they're going to deliver. I think it's going to be a lot like Darksiders 3, where like we're going to see a number of big budget cuts. The game's not going to look nearly as nice as the last couple of games. It's going to be a major downgrade in quality. There's going to be like lots of obvious things wrong with it, and on top of all that, it's going to be pandering to the SJW crowd. It's going to seriously try and present Lara Croft as a lesbian, which has never been true, by the way. I played Tomb Raider 2013 recently, and that game does say in game that Lara Croft has had sexual interactions with men. Now she's a complete spurg, but it's not it's not unheard of for like guys to approach her and for her to talk to them. Like it is something that happens. She even kisses Alex, right? And like right before he dies like a bitch, right? people love saying that like, oh man, there's so many lesbian overtones in this game, undertones in this game. Really? Like, are you fucking serious? Like, she saves her friend that she's known forever. Like, what exactly about that is lesbianish? Like, here's my problem with this. Here's my problem with this. It really does feel like these guys, and it is like primarily men doing this, have to sexualize everything when it comes to like these female video game action heroes. Like they can't just be female video game action heroes. They have to be gay, they have to be trans, they have to have something to like to make them appealing to the SJW crowd. And it feels like that's what they're trying to do with Lara Croft with this next installment. Now, I don't think it's going to stick because like we've had 14 games at this point. Like we've had like we've had a lot of Tomb Raider games, right? The IP seems dead in the water. I don't. I felt like they were running out of ideas by Shadow the Tomb Raider, which I never finished. I don't see them really reinvigorating the franchise ever. I think it's a dead IP. I think it's gonna struggle the way that like Crash Bandicoot struggled and all these other things. There are just too many things like it. You know what I mean? Uh, Tomb Raider, the reboot was fine for what it was, and I wish they did more with it. I really do wish the sequels like really did a lot more with like the survival aspect and the community aspect. Like the sequels have towns that you can explore and like take side quests in and stuff like that, but it's very shallow and kind of lame. I I would really like to see a Tomb Raider game that was like legitimately built off of 2013 instead of just being a rehash of it. But it seems like we're never going to get it. And going by our history with this kind of thing, with The Last of Us Part Two, with all this stuff, we're probably better off just looking for a new IP that's remotely similar. Metroid is still clean. There's no SJW influence there. Like you have plenty of options, all right, especially on the Japanese front. I don't really see any reason to even be remotely interested in the upcoming lesbian action game, Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, and her harem of bitches. That is the only people who seem supportive of this idea are Coomers, by the way. And that really needs to stop. Like, lesbians are not sexy, okay? They don't exist. Uh, you need to stop fetishizing that lifestyle. You need to stop giving these people the benefit of the doubt that like, oh, maybe they'll make a good game out of this. No, it's not going to happen. Focusing on stuff like this is a waste of time. I would rather have a good Tomb Raider game.